Okie doke. We're about ready to start our next talk. This is Matthew Bergman, and he is going to talk about the tyranny of choice. You also might recognize his photography work as Photo Verite. He's been one of the people taking a bunch of pictures. It's on the Flickr photo stream, so thanks for that.
Yes. All right. Can everybody hear me? Good.
Talk to the mic.
All right. Guys, hello. My name's Matt Bergman. I work at a small rail consultancy shop called Nova Fabrica, which I absolutely love. But of course, today I am not here to talk about anything to do with Ruby, but I do think you knowing that makes you understand a little bit more where I'm coming from, because I've only gotten to Node about 2 years ago. I've been seeing it, and JavaScript in general, and seeing it grow, and it's been interesting to compare and contrast with what I've seen happening with the Ruby community. Actually, this whole entire talk came about at AlexJS with me talking with Owen Barnes and discussing how many flow control libraries there are. And 80 at this point. It's like, well, how do you decide between each one? How do you look at it? And where are we going with all these? So, going with that idea, how many choices a day do you make when you're programming? Now, I'm not talking about choices on a variable name or a scope or how you're going to construct an object, but real choices. Choices that are going to have a cost down the line, where you're like deciding how you're going to structure out the whole entire app, or how you're going to do your billing payment structure, or things are actually going to matter. I think most days you're not making 15 or 10 or 5. I think most days you're making one real choice. Now, there are exceptions, but generally you know where you're going. You have your go-tos. You have your frameworks, your pre-compilers, your libraries, your styles, and of course your modules. So I want to try to get us all out of this headspace for a moment of actually knowing what we're doing. So what would you do if I asked you to create a photo sharing WordPress site right now, which is very possible. There have been plenty of people using WordPress to share photos and do stuff that are not just blogs. What would you do? Well, for some of you, once you get over the shock of working in another language, you would probably go to the WordPress plugin site, which is very old at this point. It's actually very well maintained and has a very good search feature, and it's pretty easy to get around. Which, if some of you have been to the new npm www site, might find it a bit familiar. This is because package managers have been around for a long time, at least 20 years at this point, and there are a lot of knowns about how they work and how you should look at things. But in all honesty, if I actually do this in a day, you would have no idea where to start. You would like put in photos and say, and you would like be talking on the message board. So like, how do I do this? Because it's not just as easy as just knowing what you want. You need to know the landscape. And luckily in JavaScript, you kind of do at this point. So when we're dealing with stuff that we don't really know, we usually go either to forums or mostly now to look at the modules to see what other people have created to help us out with different APIs and other stuff that we need to happen. And at the moment, NPM has 17,307 modules. Oh wait, I'm wrong. This is a lot. This is more than all the homeroom formulas. This is all the magic cards in the world. And this is only going to grow. Seriously. This is the chart of the growth of NPM from when it began to where it is right now. Now, NPM was set up very well in the last talk. I'm sorry if I glossed over it, but it's basically the node package manager. It's one of the biggest ones right now. You can see where a lot of JavaScript is going with it. And at the moment, it is getting close to exponential, and it's creating a lot of choices. Now, going with another experiment, what if I asked you guys to figure out what control flow library you guys want to use? Now, for those who actually have dealt with this problem before, there is an obvious choice. Async. It's one of the largest dependent node modules in existence. There's like 900 dependencies. It's been around for like a year and a half. It is important. A lot of people know about it. But if you search for control flow on npm dub right now, you get 20 modules. And none are async. Now, this is two main problems to it, because we assume that people have the knowledge that we have. We assume they know about the stuff that we know, that they have everything that we experience. And most of the time, they do not. So they do not know that async is the one to go to. They do not have the support team that you have. Because there are a lot of people who don't go to conferences or don't go on IRC or are just starting out. They cannot DM Max Ogden or Isaac or go to the right IRCs where they're actually going to be listened to and be helped. Because we are a very good community about helping out people, but unless they actually know where to go, they're going to be lost. And there are so many people with different skill sets. Not everybody is going to want to use the same modules, not just because they're good or they're bad, but because they don't do exactly what they want. Some people don't want to parse the body. Some people do. Some people want fine-grained control. Some people don't. There is not going to be a one-size-fits-all. And more importantly than any of that, I really am tired that at the end of the day, when I have a problem, I Google. Google is awesome, but you don't know if you're actually going to be answered, because it is not an all-seeing eye. There has got to be a better way than this. I just want to reiterate, this is not a problem with any package manager, especially npm ww. This is just a problem with discovery. Because, as I said before, it is growing daily, and things are just going to get more and more choices, because JavaScript is just blowing up, and there's going to be more of us year on year. And I like the idea of many modules working together. Now, if I could require Substack for a moment. Substack has been very much, and it's been getting bigger and bigger, especially in the Node community, of making small modules, about thinking about just having module do one thing and one thing only. Because you don't want to have to deal with lots and lots of things in a small library. You want it to be easy. You want it to be updated when it can and have all the bugs fixed out of it, and not have a gigantic glob that you're just requiring to your server or your website or your app, because you don't know what the hell it's doing, because most of the time you do not have the time to look at every single part of the code unless it's really small. So he's been doing that, and this is gaining more and more popularity with the exporting of a function, a single thing, that it only does one thing. And getting to all this is because we do not want a monolith. Seriously, we do not want a monolith. We don't want JavaScript or Node or anything else to just be known for one thing and one thing only, because I've been there, people. I've seen it. Oh, have I seen it. I have been working with Rails for 4 years. And you know what? I loved working with Rails. I still do. There's a lot of good parts to it. But it overshadows everything else in Ruby to this day. These are actual things. I'm sorry that you can't really see, but Web Machine, Puma, Sinatra, those are things that actually are doing lots of interesting, innovative stuff that nobody talks about because all they can see is Rails. It's anything, when anybody actually talks about Ruby, this is what they're actually talking about. And Gems have become basically a plugin system for Rails, and it's tiring. And I want to see innovation. I want to see more than just one thing happen. And there is something really important to be aware of. There's a reason people use Rails, because it meant less decisions, and less technical debt, and less time. Because every choice has a cost. And every act of choosing has a cost. People forget that. It's not just about figuring out what modules you want to use or how you want to structure something, but it's the actual vetting process. People get lost, and especially now with more and more choices daily with the language we've decided to work with. It's coming from 3 choices to 24, and it's a lot harder to choose between those so many. And more importantly than just that, you have a problem of actually just deciding between these 24 and having maybe this one or maybe that one or maybe this one, so that you're continually playing them you're playing them all against each other to the point where you're not happy with any of them. So we're having technical debt accruing not just when you're making your choices, but after the fact. And we have finite time. There only is so many hours in the day. We want a life outside of code. We love code, but we want to do other stuff. So we don't want to just be looking for stuff to help us out. We want to actually be doing stuff. So we need to streamline choices, because I don't want to make 50 decisions to start a project. And it's not just about the dependencies you're going to be choosing, it's how you're going to be connecting your modules to each other. Right now, in JavaScript in general, I think there is a big movement towards layered complexity, to building up things slowly through different libraries together. So we need to make discovery easier. We need it to be organic, we need it to be fun, and we need it to be thoughtful. So there are a couple of common patterns to talk about. I'm going to start very simple. Blog posts. Nojitsu? Planet Node? Really, at the moment, there aren't that many options. Same with training sites. There's Code Academy, which I do not really recommend for anybody starting out, and JS for Cats, which is a lovely little site that Max Ogden put together for training your cat to use JavaScript. I love it. But it's, 5 pages long. It's best like a kick to the pants to start understanding JavaScript, but it's not going to actually train anybody to understand what you're doing. And podcast, we have a single podcast. It's called Node Up, and most of the time they don't even talk about Node. You might learn about one module doing that, or one new feature set. They will go into every single directions. I love it, but it's not, going to be the resource that people are using to understand everything in modules or anything else. I mean, there's a difference because in Ruby right now, I can swing a cat and hit 5 podcasts and 482 training sites. We have Rails for Zombies, and this and that is awesome. People go to Rails because, it's easy to learn because they have a resource. Now, JavaScript and Node is still a young community. It's only been a year or two we can finally say, no, we are not a toy language. No, there's actually real things being built, and we are awesome. And community takes time. But we need to create these resources now, because we do not want a monolith. Because we don't actually have an easy way to teach people. They are just going to go to the biggest planted flag, which is going to be Getty or Express or one of the other do everything at the same time libraries. And we don't actually want that. They're great, they're awesome, they should be an option, not the only choice. And we need to think bigger. We can do better than what has come before. Because a lot of those methods I was just talking about, blog posts or podcasts or training sites, are kind of time sensitive. And NPM, and I think a lot of modules in general, are going to have some unique challenges. Because this is node sorted. This is something I used in a project very recently. Notice something? You can't really read it. It hasn't been updated in a year. And there's only 19 commits, and there's 4 forks. 1 fork. It's a great little module. It does one thing. It's never going to be updated again because it's fine. It works well. But if you don't know Substack, you don't know to trust. It's not been updated for a year? Hell no, I'm not going to actually use this. It probably has plenty of bugs. It doesn't. This goes the health of a module is something hard to actually understand. You can't look at forks because if it does one thing well, why are you adding to it? Aren't you just going to make a different module that works with it? Same thing for commits. And stars. Who uses stars? Can anybody here explain to me what a star is on GitHub right now? What it actually means besides following? How does it actually mean anything? Till we actually as a community decide what it means to follow something on GitHub, it honestly is a terrible metric to decide anything about a repo, besides the fact people are kind of interested. But it doesn't mean it's good or it's bad. You could just be looking at it for the lulz, like Bootstrap. Anyway, so we need a few new ways to judge the health of a module. One of these I actually like that's already on NPM is viewing dependencies from bottom to top, where you actually look at dependents, because it does tell you that this is a module that's trusted because everything else is using it, and if this breaks, everything's in trouble, so you know that's going to be patched. I've also been talking a bit to Isaac, who runs the npm dub site. There's been some talk about goodness index, so it's not just going to be searching, but it's actually going to be somehow a real metric for the health of a module. And I also think there are some other more esoteric things we could do that could be really interesting, like looking at collaborations between module authors, such as Substack and Dominic Tarr, who do a lot of things together, so you know their modules really work well with each other. And it's actually good to know like that this module is working good with this module, and also that knowing what is being used in production. This is something I can't stress enough. It's so hard right now to find out what people are using that aren't just the basics. We need a way to see what people are actually using, because that would be the most useful, because you know it's working for them, you know it's at least somewhat safe. Because we are the Wild West right now. Things have gotten much, much, much better, and Node is awesome, and JavaScript is awesome, and there's so many sites using it in production daily where nothing breaks and everything is pretty much even keel and just as mature as everything else. But there's still a lot of growing to be done. I would love to see a collection of just all these apps together with their modules. And visualization of them would be awesome. Because at the end of the day, all these libraries, modules, frameworks, everything else we're putting together are ingredients for our apps. We gotta know how they all work. And that means a lot of vetting and a lot of trial and error, because you're not gonna wanna use the same thing every single time. We are doing so many things these days on the internet. So many things, and they all require different skill sets and different ways of thinking, and every single day is going to be a new adventure, a new choice. And doing that, you got to really know the landscape. You got to know what you're using. And we need to make that as easy as hell to do. We need to make discovery easy, because we have finite time. There's only going to be so many hours in a day you can work, and you want to use those hours well, not searching on Google. So this is a quote that Michael gave at LXJS, that the Node project, something he's been very heavily invested in, has never had the same conversations as Apache, dealing with open source, because they are part of the GitHub generation, because they've never had to deal with SVN and all the other stuff. But I mean, that's only looking at half of it. The thing is that this means we have new conversations. We have new choices, and we have new problems that we need to face. And these problems are not easily solved. They need to be thought about, they need to be talked about daily, weekly, monthly, all the time, because we are growing at an exponential rate. This is something we need to take seriously. And I am taking it seriously. I am trying to help out. So, I actually put in a pull request for npm dub. I have added Elasticsearch to npm. Now, unfortunately, it has not been pulled yet, but it actually does work, and it should be happening in the next couple of days. How do I get to the other one? Sorry. Can you see it now? There we go. So, oh Lord, this is not going to work. Sorry, guys. So if you search for module package maintainers, you actually find them just automatically. You don't have to go through Google. It's awesome. Or if you search for a package like async. Sorry, there we go. See, async. It actually shows up. You don't have to have that secondary page for loading, and it's going to do much more hopefully soon with scoring, and also no docs and npm docs and other stuff, and just making things better. Anyway, on Photaverte, that's what I want to talk about, and thank you very much.